I am Neil Larthos. I am the next Abdullah. You are the next Neville Goddard. Your SP gets wet every single time they think of you, and your bank account makes Jeff Bezos look homeless. If you guys want to work with me, the links are in the description, and subscribe for daily manifestation content. Inner Netflix, okay? So you guys have heard of inner conversations, but inner Netflix, guys, is a new wave, okay? So what is it? Well, first, if any of you guys don't know what inner conversations is a form of a manifestation technique where instead of doing affirmations like, oh, me and my SP are in a perfect relationship, instead of doing an imaginal act where you and your SP are getting married, or you just won all the money in the fucking world, instead of doing that, you simply hear a conversation of your friend congratulating you that you won the money, or you hear your SP saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe we've been married for 70 years and we still fuck every single night. Whatever, right? So that is inner conversations, right? It doesn't require any imagery. It doesn't require anything else but just basically audio, okay? Well, inner Netflix is the exact same thing, except you frame it differently. You don't just think about celebrating the victory, like, hearing somebody congratulating you, or the topic of marriage being brought up with your SP. No, it's almost like it does take a little bit of imagination in the sense of what I'm about to tell you, but you basically try to think of what would it be like to be in a reality with your SP. What would a Netflix original series look like if they made one about you and your SP? You don't have to worry about, oh shit, but then that means that I would have to go to Spain, and that means that I would have to, get an extreme home makeover, and my biceps and my traps need to be like 3 inches thicker. It's not really about that. It's simply you. It's almost like if someone has a Netflix series of you, but in the future, but everything else is more or less the same. The things that you don't really care about changing, if you still have a fucking nasty ass mole 3 centimeters underneath your ear, but you don't really give a shit about that, all you want is SP, then just ask yourself, what would a Netflix series be like if the plot was revolved around a life with your SP? Now, to be fair, I think it'd be better if you just simply ask yourself, what would it be like if your SP was your spouse in a series about your life? Because honestly, making it just about the relationship is almost like putting your SP on a pedestal, which they don't deserve that. That you are the main character in your current reality, and gosh darn it, if you have a Netflix series, you need to make sure that you are the main character too, okay? Because the way I see it, and I've even told this as a self-pedestalization before to my clients, your SP is lucky to be even involved in your movie. Your SP is lucky to have won that role in your movie, okay? So, if anything, they should be glad that they landed a very desired role in Hollywood that is now premiering on Netflix, original series, and gets better ratings than Grey's Anatomy and Breaking Bad and 365 Days and all that bullshit, right? So what would a Netflix series look like? And you see, I actually created this on call with one of my lifetime clients. Yes, lifetime, you heard that right, fellas. You guys can actually have me for a lifetime. I'll be there by your side. It's a membership on my store, okay? I'm practically your slave. No, but in all seriousness, one of my lifetime clients, shout out to Blinky, okay, I know you're watching this. He is trying to, is manifesting his SP, right? He's already with SP, okay? I'm just going to put it like that. I'm not going to go into specific details, but my boy has SP, right? But I was talking to him one time in one of our calls, and we were talking about, we always are discussing techniques, right? Because this man, what I love about him is that he always wants to learn, right? And whenever I have a client like that, it is so fun because I love teaching, but a person who always wants to learn is always willing to adapt. And when you're willing to adapt, you are not going to, when you're willing to adapt, you are able to step out of your comfort zone a lot more easily. And stepping out of your comfort zone is important because those who live by the flesh will die, but those who live by the Spirit shall live. Okay? That is not talking about if you masturbate that you're going to hell. What that means is that if you base everything off of how you feel, like I don't feel like getting out of bed today, but I just don't think that, you know, this technique is working because it doesn't feel right. Feeling is the secret. Neville is God. No, you are God. Shut the fuck up and listen, okay? No one decides what you're feeling but you. It doesn't matter what emotion you're going through. It doesn't matter what circumstances you are seeing. You have every right to say, actually, no, this is, that I don't even identify with that anymore. I identify with the version of myself where my SP is chasing me, where, I mean, my goodness, they bought 10 engagement rings for my fingers and 10 engagement rings for my toes. Okay? But moving on, when I was talking to him, I created this inner dialogue. And at first we were just talking about inner conversations that he could have with his SP, right? But then I told myself, you know, dude, I told him about an SP that I had, and I've spoken about this woman on my channel before, who, I'm gonna be honest with you, it was during a hookup phase where she had a boyfriend, but he was treating her like crap. And it was a situation where she felt like she kind of had to stay with him because, you know, yeah, he was abusive, but at the same time, you know, she didn't have any other place to go because she was depending on him, right? But she was falling for me, right? Well, one day, you know, something happened and he threatened to leave her. And so, long story short, she basically had to tell me that I needed to, you know, respect the boundaries and that she was going to try to be a loyal girlfriend, right? You know, even though the love was already out of the picture, there was no passion between the two. But you know, it was one of those guys where he still felt like he was going to obligate her to stay with him, right? They weren't married, but they were just living together, and we worked together at this time. So typically, when things were going great, she would be flirting with me, getting very touchy, call HR, right? I mean, practically her tits were like a magnet to my elbow whenever she needed to, you know, reach for something that she could have gotten all the way over there across the store, but she has to reach it, you know, for the bag that was right next to me on the line, right? But making every excuse to touch your boy Neo, right? Well, when her boyfriend gave her that ultimatum and he basically threatened to leave her, she, you know, all the flirting went out the window. So things in the 3D after that happened were awkward. You know, the 3D sensations were awkwardness. You know, this is weird. You know, should I play hard to get to? Like, you know, what should I do? Because she was distant. She was not even talking to me after that. It's like she was afraid that, you know, I was going to make a move on her. But I respected her boundaries, right? I didn't keep double texting her or keep saying, what's wrong? What's wrong? I knew what was up. She simply told me. And after that, I simply respected her boundaries. But because I still had a lot of desire for her at the time, around that time was already dabbling in Neville Goddard. Pause, hold on. I was dabbling in the philosophies of Neville Goddard, right? And one of the things that I knew about was inner conversations, but I didn't understand them 100%. But I liked doing imaginal acts. I liked doing affirmations. But for some strange reason, I don't know what it was, but I would not only do imaginal acts, I would not only do self-pedestalizations, but I started going crazy because of the feeling of like the overwhelming awkwardness of like, you know, me and her having to practically work side by side, because we worked at a restaurant, side by side in the kitchen, right? And where typically it was nonstop flirtation and just nonstop her telling me about her day and her telling me about, you know, this and that. There was a huge overwhelming gap of just awkward silence, right? And, you know, at first it got to the point where it was just like, you know, what the hell, you know, but there's Blinky calling me right now. You see, he already knows what I'm saying. I'll get back to you, Blinky. You know I love you, buddy. But there was all that awkward silence, right? Well, instead of saying like, oh, this is so awkward, like, you know, should I do what the red pill community tells me to do and, you know, match and mirror her behavior and, you know, play hard to get and be the alpha and be cold and distant too. No, I didn't engage with her. I didn't try to start conversation. But what I simply did is when I craved the attention that she used to give me, when I craved the flirtations that she used to provide before her boyfriend threatened to break up with her, I just simply gave it to myself in my head. And I came at it with this sense of like, I already seen this episode before. I already know what's about to happen, right? So I will go in my head sometimes when we were right next to each other, and I would have like this scene of her like, you know, just, you know, get me demonetized right now. I mean, her sucking me off like doggy style. I mean, just all the whole nine, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. And I'm not talking about the either ways, everything. We were doing the whole thing, you know, cancel me on YouTube, everything. Right. And so there I was in the 3D experiencing awkwardness, but in my mind, I was not only imagining what I wanted to do with her, which, you know, you guys can guess what that was. But on top of that, I was having like other, you know, imaginations pop up where she was, you know, telling me about how, you know, big I am and just, you know, how much she, you know, had to throw away all her dildos. It's just, I know you guys are like, what the fuck? But I mean, the point is, you know, I was going extreme, and it got to the point where I was telling myself all these episodes in my brain of like, in episode 3 was where she decided, you know, to propose to me instead of the other way around. And I'm just like, you know, sweetheart, I mean, I'm still not ready for that. And then she's, you know, upset for a little bit, but then we have makeup sex. And I was just thinking about all this shit while in the 3D. She's giving me nothing, right? And it got to the point where I was just having so much fun with all these crazy things where it was a whole series of like 10 episodes in my head of her just chasing me, of her just putting me on the pedestal, of her proposing to me instead of the other way around. And it got to the point where I caught myself laughing in front of her in the 3D because I was so in my head. Now, you guys don't have to go overboard like I do with the intimacy, but the only reason why I do it is because it's one of the things that really excites my subconscious and certain other physical parts. But the point is whether it's going overboard and thinking about inner Netflix, inner episodes, inner conversations, inner imaginal acts about intimacy, or whether you're thinking about, you know, just you guys feeding each other ice cream. The point is, you know, the reason why I call it inner Netflix is because you don't have to necessarily approach it as imaginal acts. You can approach it as inner conversations. But this is where the true magic happens. When you don't just base it off of being, you know, finally getting them, or like, I got that text, my ex finally responded, or my ex finally unblocked me. What would that feel like if I stopped seeing this page is not available on their Instagram? No. What would it be like if you guys were waiting at Target and she was your SP, you're married to her now, and she's taking 30 minutes just to choose hand wipes? What would it be like? Imagine a comical scene where you're just like, sweetheart, fuck this shit, I'm going to the car. And she's like, no, babe, no. And like she's like pulling on your arm like a little girl, and you're just like, oh my fucking God. 5 more minutes, and if not, I'm going home. You're walking. Like, that is way more, like, to me, more visceral, more immersive than you just, imagining them putting an engagement ring on your finger, or even walking down the aisle. And I know someone's going to say, like, you mean to tell me arguing with my wife at Target is more better than having an imaginal act of the marriage? Yeah, but people get married and get divorced, right? But if you guys are at Target and she wants you, she doesn't want you to go to the car, and she's pulling you like a little girl. I mean, she's submissive. She's like, no, daddy, please, I'll behave, right? But on top of that, it's more realistic because it's showing you the polarity, because a lot of people just think of the heights, but you're also making it more neutral, because it's more believable that, yes, no matter if you are married to, the worst person you could think of, or your favorite option on the market, okay? You're going to face ups and downs. Relationships are like a roller coaster. So I like to do it like that, because that's the way movies and series are, especially series, right? You see all the different colors of the relationship, the good, the bad, the ugly, the arguments, but also the quirkiness, the silly, goofy banter, The one that I created with him, I don't know where this one came up with, but I told him, like, bro, you over here thinking about your SP who hasn't texted you in a while. At that time, she hasn't texted in a while, but they're together now. But what would happen if you woke up to her and she just ripped a fucking loud ass fart? Like, I'm talking ripped ass while you were trying to read, Robert Greene, right? And it's just like, and literally when I told him that, first of all, he cracked up, he died laughing. Like, I lost signal for like a good 20 minutes. We had to revive him and resuscitate him, me and the emergency crew, because he almost lost it right there. But then I got him thinking, this guy started saying, like, bro, I would probably, I don't even know how I would look at her the next morning. Should I sit her down? Should I talk to her about this? Should I take her to a quiet cafe and really say, look, we need to talk? Like, how do we handle this? Because I can't see her the same after she just ripped a fucking chainsaw in my ear when I was doing my nightly reading, And I mean, he even said, he's like, no more Taco Tuesday. Like, that's final. Like, holy shit. Like, I don't think I could see her the same. And you see, that is an extreme example, okay? And I'm not trying to get you to all of a sudden be disgusted by your SP. But you see, this is inner conversation on steroids, guys. Because this is what a series would be like if you had one. Speaking, now I have to rip ass. Hold on. Even series with the best couples you can think of in cinema, okay? There's going to be episodes, there's going to be scenes where they have a little bit of conflict, right? Because that's what makes a story, is how they solve the resolution, how they solve the conflict in the story, right? Because, I mean, if you were just watching a series where it was just flowers and daisies, you'd be like, what the fuck? Next, I want to see somebody die, right? I want blood, right? So, think of the blood, think of the sweat, think of the tears that comes with the relationship, because that's really ultimately what love is all about, is through thick and thin, through death or sickness, you guys will always be together, especially if you are trying to manifest marriage, guys. That's what they say in the vows. So really own it, okay? But I'm telling you, it's more realistic when you look at all the different colors of imaginal acts when you're thinking of your SP, because I swear to God, like, your subconscious accepts it more as reality, because that's what you've seen in relationships. Again, no relationship is perfect, But I mean, you don't have to actually see you guys like fighting. You know, you know, she pulls you by the hair and she swings you like the Trunchbull and Matilda. I'm not saying that, okay? But gosh darn it, like, be realistic too. And again, make it comical, right? You don't have to make it all serious. Don't make it a dark fucking Apple TV drama, psychological thriller. No, make it more of a quirky comedy. A quirky romantic comedy, really. Because I swear to God, guys, when your subconscious sees you laughing, they're going to attribute that to you being in the state of the wish fulfilled, because the state of the wish fulfilled is not giving a fuck. And when you're laughing and you're having a good time, when was the last time somebody saw you just, you know, cracking up and they're like, dude, you look so depressed. I'm here for you, bro. No. So make inner episodes in your mind, especially if you're in the midst of your SP, or especially if you're going through things in the 3D that you don't like, which, by the way, never identify with the circumstances, identify with whatever's in your head, whether it's inner conversations, imaginal acts, SATs, self-pedestalizations, or inner Netflix. But inner Netflix is a fun way of doing it. Simply ask yourself, what would a series be like if it was a quirky romantic comedy and there was all colorations of my relationship? What is a scene that I can go to where I can just laugh at all the time, even if it's a little bit conflicting, but where it's not totally us fighting? It's just something that makes me laugh. And for my client, it was his SP ripping ass and just doing stink bombs, and him, the whole episode is not about, oh, she hasn't texted me, oh, does she love me, she loves me, she loves me not, no, it was like, I need to tell her no more bean and cheese fucking burritos, right? You see, that's the whole point, is it gets your mind off of validation, and it gets your mind on things that you would be thinking of if you were already in a relationship. Subtle things like, shit, she always steals my toothbrush. You know, what can I steal from her as revenge? You know, this is how quirky comedies go. They're never about, and I'm talking about the quirky comedies not of single people, of married couples where they never leave each other, right? Because if they leave each other, then it's no longer the fucking Mary and Joseph show. It's the, well, actually, it's not a nativity. It's not the fucking Amber and Christopher show. You know, if it's Amber and Christopher, but then they fucking divorce on the second episode, then what the fuck? What was the point of calling it the Amber and Christopher show? Should just be the Amber show, the Christopher show, right? So you already know you guys are staying together. That's the whole premise. The premise is you guys are in a loving relationship and you're just showing all the colorations, and make yourself laugh, okay? If you want to go more in detail about manifesting your SP, and if you want to be my next success story, guys, what are you waiting for? The links are in the description. I am Neil Larthos. This is all that the I Am Awareness had to say. And I know you're going to be okay.